You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Kunkin.
And here we're back. We're going to be ranking The Empire Strikes Back tonight, which, do we even need to, spoilers? It's pretty good. What did you think rewatching it?
I said going into it that Empire is the one I've watched the least. Yeah. And it has a lot of really good things in it, but I don't have the same reverence for The Empire Strikes Back as everybody else does in the fandom. Because I don't like unhappy things, and it's the unhappiest one of all of them. The other two have such happy and cheerful endings.
But it's also very romantic.
It is. I forgot about that. It's got so many great scruffy looking nerve herder and there's just it's like a thing where I was like, oh man. I actually did halfway through be like, man, I want to go watch Han and Leia shipper videos because I think that those would be fun too.
Oh, they are. They're a good time.
I haven't actually spent time on the internet in that realm. Man, why didn't I discover the internet as a child? I don't think it existed. It didn't exist in the same way when I was a child. It's just devastating.
At least not in an accessible way.
Yeah.
It existed, but it was hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used it for my MSN Messenger.
Yeah. This past week, actually, tickets for Star Wars Celebration went on sale.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Did you get them?
Yep, I got mine.
Nice.
Yeah, and normally in the past we've just used media passes. I've never paid to go to Star Wars Celebration, but they changed the way that you get into panels. So you use an app that's registered to your badge, and you put in for the panels you want to go to for the bigger ones. Yeah. And there are lotteries. So nice. That you don't have to line up overnight. Nice. Because what would happen at Star Wars Celebration is for the big ones, particularly for the movie ones, so like The Last Jedi, Force Awakens, etc., you would line up the night before. Whoa. You'd be in line overnight. Wait. And I've done it. I did it to get into the George Lucas panel for Star Wars Celebration 5 because that was the first time that he ever did a panel. Oh. And it was totally worth it. The row of us, there was about 6 guys that I was with, and at least half of us cried when he came out because it was
that emotional.
Yeah. And also because we were all very sleep deprived.
Yeah,
yeah. So, and that wouldn't even be to actually get into the panel. That would be to get the wristband to get into the panel. Right. And then the panel is later that day. Yeah. So they give out the wristbands at 8 a.m. Right. And then you get your wristband and you go away. Go back to your hotel and sleep for an hour or two so that you could do the rest of the day. I'm so glad that that's not necessary anymore, that technology allows us with our smartphones and everything to just
virtually line up.
Yeah. But at the last celebration, the one that they just did in Chicago back in April, media passes either did not work or were not prioritized. Oh. So, and this is the thing. Media badges are not what I think people think they are. Media badges are free admission. And if you're a podcast or you're a blogger or you're a fan something or other, then you're on a very specific list. And that list is whatever's left in the kitchen. You can just put it out on a plate for the fan sites. And that's totally legit. Because we get to go to the thing for free. We get to sit in press junkets that other people don't get to be in. We get to ask direct questions to people, not big stars, but like to the Clone Wars actors or the Rebels or Resistance actors. Dave Filoni, supervising director. So there's access. You get stuff, and there's a private room for media to go back to write stories and send stuff back. So there are perks for sure in being media, and I've always been really grateful to be media for Star Wars Celebration. Other things that I go to less so because you don't get treated as well. But Lucasfilm's always really, really good to media. But your badges don't get you special access to the panels because the panels are there for the people who paid to go to the con, right? And Star Wars Celebration has Jedi Master level, which is like you get early access. You get to go into panels before everybody else. There's special reserve seating near the front.
Wow, really?
All that sort of stuff. $900 a ticket. Jeez. American.
Wow. So
to us, over $1,000. I didn't do that. But
shocking.
So that's the first tier of like, these are the most important people. They're VIPs. They specifically paid a lot of money in order to get that luxury. Totally legit. I'm fine with that. It's not, there aren't very many Jedi Master badges, and in a theater of however many thousand that they seat, there's like a few hundred seats that have been reserved.
Right, yeah,
so it's not like, not like they're taking from other people that much. Yeah. It is a little bit of a capitalist sort of thing, but it is what it is. It's that the whole con is there for them to make money. Don't pretend like it's anything else. That's why they make Star Wars movies, is to make money. But then the regular badges get higher priority, and then media badges. It seemed like I didn't see a lot of people with just media badges getting into the big panels.
Right.
They were not. I guarantee you they were not allotted as many in the lottery as everybody else.
Gotcha.
So with that in mind, I bought badges for Crystal and I, so that we can get into the panels that we want to go to. Most importantly, because it's the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back next year, and I expect that they'll have a 40th anniversary panel, and that'll probably be the best place to see some of the big names in person. So. Mark Hamill will almost definitely be there. I'm fairly certain. We'll probably get Anthony Daniels is a shoo-in. He will be there. Warwick Davis, who played Wicket the Ewok, will probably be hosting it. Like 95% sure on that one, unless they get a celebrity, like an outside celebrity, to host it. Billy D. Williams probably, but there is the slimmest outside chance that George Lucas could show up because it's 40th anniversary and it's in Anaheim, so it's not that big of a deal. And then the other very, very slim outside chance is that Harrison Ford could show up. Highly unlikely, very, very unlikely that he would show up for that.
He doesn't care to go to anything unless he's paid the right amount of money.
He's softened a lot in the last couple of years, though.
Okay.
And there was a moment at the Galaxy's Edge opening where they brought up Peter Mayhew, who passed away, and actually maybe it was an interview for something else. Oh, he was doing an interview for Secret Life of Pets, and Jimmy Kimmel brought it up. Not Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon brought it up, and Harrison Ford, one of the toughest men to ever grace this earth, like started to break down. And shut it down and like moved on to the next thing, sort of thing, of like that was like somebody who was very important to him that passed away. Yeah. I was like, it's Chewbacca. He's Han Solo. Like, I don't think that when he delivers the line "Chewie, we're home" in The Force Awakens, that's not all Han Solo. Part of that's Harrison Ford, and part of that is with Peter Mayhew. And it's so at Galaxy's Edge, when they basically to open the park, the Millennium Falcon's like kind of the centerpiece of the whole land, right? And they go to do the big here we go, we're gonna turn it on, and it goes just like it does in the movies.
So good.
And Bob Iger turns to Harrison Ford and he's like, could you do the honors? Like, can you get it to? And he walks over and unscripted, because he stepped on his own cue, but the guy in the booth doing the lights, doing the pyro, should have been paying more attention. Whatever. The production side of me was like, oh, you ruined what could have been one of the most amazing moments in Star Wars history. But before he goes to basically hit the underside of the Falcon, like to Fawn's hit the jukebox so that it works, he turns to the camera and he goes, "This one's for you, Peter." And it was like, there's something there in that relationship that I don't think the public has been privy to. That's been a very private friendship between the two of them. And now that he's gone, I think that there's a chance that and the fact that he softened a little bit over the last few years in regards to his feelings towards the fans and coming out to stuff like that. There's a chance, the best chance of seeing him at a Star Wars celebration other than The Force Awakens.
Right.
So I don't know. We didn't see him at the Force Awakens celebration because he crashed an airplane on a golf course.
Oh, dear.
Do you remember when he did that? He crashed his airplane? Oh, yeah.
To get out of going to the Force Awakens.
Possibly. To get out of Star Wars Celebration. No, he did. It was like months before. And he was still recovering or whatever. And then he came out at Comic-Con, which was a big deal.
Excited for Comic-Con.
Yeah, you're going to Comic-Con. But yeah, Star Wars Celebration. So I got my tickets, so I'm excited about that. But it's over a year away. It's like 14 months away.
Comic-Con's like a month away.
Yeah.
Then, so I'm excited. That's
crazy.
I got an embargoed email. It was really great.
Oh wow, what's about? Just kidding. Cool. Let's jump into our email / correspondence with everybody. This one comes from Facebook. Dylan Exner writes, Amandla Stenberg, and then brackets Rue, was not in The Sun Is Also a Star. That was Yara Shahidi. So
I love it. I feel like in the 80s I never Googled stuff. So Nicola Yoon did 2 YA novels. Everything.
Yeah.
And The Sun Is Also a Star. And they were both like, I think they were released within like a year of one another. And Amanda was in everything.
Yeah.
So I'm really sorry. I haven't seen either of the movies, but in terms of like the things that she was in that nobody saw, it was actually everything that I was referencing. I apologize. But she was still in the other ones, The Darkest Minds and The Hate You Give. So,
so that's an official retraction.
So I apologize. But I'm sure The Sun Is Also a Star. I'm sure that actress is lovely, and I haven't. But it also is not necessarily doing well. So
it's not doing well for the reasons that we talked about last week. It's a Netflix movie that got released in theaters for some reason.
But I am impressed.
It's going to do great on streaming services. I guarantee it.
And I'm impressed that they still published it after everything didn't do well. They still picked up The Sun Is Also a Star, which is really cool because like the Nicola Yoon, like the writer, like I really both of those books are wonderful, and it's quite possible, more than likely, that The Sun Is Also a Star went into production before everything actually was in theaters. So like it could have already been on a train that wasn't stopping, but I don't know. I'm glad to see both of her things got adapted. I just wish they had both done a little bit better. I don't know if you even knew about everything. I think it's on Netflix now, or it's on Crave, or it's somewhere that I could watch it for free if I wanted to. And it's a thing where like I'm the type of person that like that movie is made for people like me, and I still haven't watched it. So
I'm sure you'll watch it eventually.
I will, of course I will eventually. But thank you for calling me out on things. And
thanks, Dylan.
My brain did a.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. But here's another email. Hey, Amanda and Mike, congrats on the new mics. The pod sounds great.
Woo!
Which it does. Have you listened to it? Did you listen to the audio difference?
No.
You've never listened to a single podcast?
I tested my Hey Google by asking them to play the podcast.
Okay.
I listen to it every once in a while. Shut up, Google. I don't listen to the podcast. Sorry, carry on.
My question for you to hopefully answer on the next episode is twofold. Do you think the MCU can pull off another multi-year 9 to 10 years build up toward another big bad like they did with Thanos with the Infinity Saga? So that's one. Assuming they can, which Marvel Comics story and what villain would you like to see them adapt and build toward? And is what you want the same as what you think Kevin Feige and Marvel / Disney will actually do? Thanks and stay sharp. That's Brad Bell from Charlotte, North Carolina. So first and foremost, do you think that they can pull off another 10 years?
Yes, because, but I don't know if people will care. Like, I don't know if it'll be that big.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what else are they going to do? They have all this money. They have more money than, like, Disney is the largest conglomerate. I don't know if it is, but it's just like so huge. And it's like, why not?
Yeah, well,
What else
Time
are they going to
Warner is
do?
still bigger,
Like,
but
what
yeah.
else are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like, just make more. Sure, people will go see it.
As long as people keep going to the movies.
The audiences might get smaller for it, but more and more what I'm thinking about in terms of like movies is like spectacle is the reason that you go to the film, to like the movies right now. Like in terms of big theaters, those intimate things are not necessarily why we go. So the things that are drawing audiences are the bigger spectacles, and Marvel does it really well. And they've got so much content to pull from, so why not? I don't know if as many people will care about it. But sure, I think
so.
They can
From
pull
a
it off.
story perspective, though, do you think that they can continue at the caliber that they've been for the last? I would say for the last 5 years, because I wouldn't consider that full 10 years, 11
No, it wasn't.
years. To
Here's
be
the thing.
pumping on all cylinders.
If Kevin Feige continues to run it,
Yeah.
and they don't, if they understand that they don't have to make like everything has to be a hit.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem that they'll fall into is like the idea of storytelling for telling
the
good
DC
stories.
fault.
It's the DC fault, right? Is the idea of once you hit something, you're like, I have to change this formula and hit this audience instead of just making like hiring creators that are genuinely connected to the material that you're trying to create, and then you just let them tell a good story. And if they can continue to do that, because that's what's been so successful over the last little bit, in my opinion, is like having these creators that are genuinely interested in this obscure property about a big blow up robot and this kid living in San Francisco or whatever, right? Like people that are like taking these odd properties and just making them something because they're interested in them. And I think if they continue to do that, and if they have people that care about storytelling, then the franchise will come from that, because it starts with whatever content is king, right? It starts with the core story, and then you can build it all together and make people care about it. You can't force them to care about something. You can't say in 10 years we're going to do this again. Watch us with jazz hands. Like, you can't do that. But if you genuinely go through a story path, and I think that they have more stories to tell, so sure.
Yeah, and I think that that's the key. Kevin Feige is the soul of this stuff. Without him, Marvel Studios isn't a thing. I think without him and without Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr., I think those three elements come together, and everything else is important, but not as important as that original piece of alchemy. That original composition is what leads to Iron Man 2, which leads to the Avengers via Thor and Captain America. And like, it's right there from the outset. Iron Man is incredible. It still stands as one of the best MCU entries. And then the Incredible Hulk is right after, which still stands as one of the worst, right? Yeah. So you can see right there the two paths that could have taken. Is that still possible? Absolutely. Is it likely? I don't think so. Because I think what you've got now is the biggest franchise in the history of film. Certainly the most successful franchise in the history of film, bigger even than Harry Potter or Star Wars or anything else. And you've got great creative people champing at the bit to participate, right? The rumors right now about Keanu Reeves and that Marvel has been Kevin Feige's been talking to Keanu Reeves for years, but that they're trying to find the right thing for him.
Yeah, that's
and
so cool.
I would almost guarantee that the first thing they came to him for was Doctor Strange. And he wasn't interested.
Right.
But that, knowing the personality of Keanu Reeves and having listened to interviews and the fact that, I mean, like, they've got Bill and Ted 3 coming out because he loves that character.
Yeah.
So the movie's happening because he wants it to happen, right? And he wants to go basically play with his friend and make another Bill and Ted movie. That's why that movie is happening. Kevin Feige isn't going to pressure him into playing a character or being part of one of these stories until Keanu Reeves finds something and goes, yes, absolutely, I want to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the sort of attitude that you have to have. You want to have great creatives, you want to have great artists, but you want them to be doing what they want to do. Right?
Is it just me, or is Keanu Reeves like taking over the world right now?
This is the year of Keanu Reeves. Yeah, 100%.
But it's like it's been building for a while because nobody's ever not liked Keanu Reeves.
Yeah,
it's just that now more people just are vocal about it?
I would say that this is a little bit of a comeback for him because the Matrix sequels, particularly Revolutions, the third one, they weren't well received, and I think that Keanu was a little bit of a hot and cold commodity as a result. Yeah. And if you liked Keanu, then you were into it. If you didn't, he became a little bit polarizing, I think, and not as much of a box office draw. I think in the last few years with John Wick and some of the other cool stuff that he's done, I think with Bill and Ted coming out, going into production this summer, I think that but also
always be my maybe. He did such a good job.
Yeah. Oh, he's so fantastic in that movie.
Fun.
And he's in Toy Story 4, which just came out.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh, so you haven't seen it yet?
No.
Neither have I. So we won't actually talk about it on this episode. That'll be the most we talk about it. But because we'll wait until one of us has seen it. Oof, yikes.
It's so fun watching train wrecks, especially going with my friend that I go specifically. Like he knew that I would be the only person that would go see this with him because we just love to watch the campy things and to talk through the whole thing because nobody gives a crap. There's like 5 people in the theater. Oh, you can just see what's going wrong and you're like, really? Ugh.
Poor Simon Kinberg.
I know he took the blame.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I mean, like that's the key to Marvel is I think they started off on a good foot with Iron Man, and then it was a little bit rocky with some of the other ones, and they kind of learned their lesson around Ant-Man with I had his name and then I just lost
Paul
it.
Rudd?
No, the director that did Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim.
Oh.
My God. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but whatever. It'll come to me.
I can Google it. My phone is right here.
Yeah. They were kind of courting these auteur directors.
Oh, right.
And then I've talked about this
Wright.
before. Edgar Wright, yeah. And then they realized like, oh wait, auteur directors want to do their own thing. They don't want to, for lack of a better term, toe the company line. Mm-hmm. And that's when they switched over to start using TV directors, and they started using the Russos, and they started using all these other creatives that were more used to coming into an established franchise, maintaining the status quo, but then putting their own spin on it. Mm-hmm. And I think that with the Russos, like that is the extra piece of alchemy that halfway through that at that 5-year mark starts to really coalesce Marvel Studios into something really special, because Iron Man was something special, and then everything else was pretty good. Joss Whedon came in and did Avengers, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good, but it was still a little bit. It didn't capture everybody.
Yeah.
And then the Russos come in and do Winter Soldier, and all of a sudden everybody perks up and goes, "Wait a second, these movies can be that too." Yeah. And when they did that, and then James Gunn comes in and does Guardians of the Galaxy, and people go, "Wait, it can be that too?" Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the MCU became something, like I said, really special, because Star Wars is Star Wars is Star Wars. And you saw with Rogue One and Solo, they tried to move away from the formula and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Because with Rogue One, I think they lost part of the audience with that one, even though it is pretty well regarded. But fans like me are like, this is too dark. It's not, it doesn't have the right vibe. And then Solo, they try and go kind of the more like fun adventure route, and everybody's like, well, this is inconsequential. It's not a great story. I'm like, well, actually, it's the best Star Wars movie, but that's fine. But it like they fiddled with the sliders a little bit, and The Last Jedi as well. They fiddled with the sliders, and it pissed people off. But with Marvel movies, that's why everybody goes now.
Yeah, because it's like they find just the right.
Because it's like there are things that are important, but then you fiddle with the sliders and you go, okay, Ant-Man, crank up the comedy,
right? Yeah.
But also crank up the action, right? So the thing about the Ant-Man movies is that it's because there's no like sort of martial artist character in there.
Right.
We take it for granted, but those are actually incredibly sophisticated martial arts movies, because all of that Ant-Man choreography is like that's what it is. It's martial arts choreography cranked up to 11, right?
Right.
And then you go to Guardians of the Galaxy and you go crank up the humor, just like Ant-Man, right? Same sort of thing. But then crank up the sci-fi.
Right. Yeah.
Which, like, in a different way. Let's take the space fantasy.
And the entourage, like the ensemble cast.
The ensemble cast, right? And then you go to Captain America and you go, whoa, let's bring the comedy down a little bit. Let's get rid of the sci-fi almost altogether. Yeah. And let's crank up the intrigue, right? And then you get a Captain America movie, right? But then there are still all of these things that are similar across them, right? And that's Marvel has the ability to do that, and I don't think a lot of franchises have that sort of flexibility. But that's Kevin Feige. Yeah. So going into the next 10 years, I mean, we've got the X-Men back, we've got the Fantastic Four back, we've got this whole wealth of characters.
They're going to do the Fantastic Four first, aren't they?
I think probably, but I think that Spider-Man is about a week and a half away at this point. Yeah, it's actually it's actually, is it? What is it?
It's like next week or something.
Is it next Tuesday?
Might be.
Oh, Spider-Man's next Tuesday. Oh my God. It's a week away. We're a week away from Spider-Man Far From Home. I got tinglies.
I saw that. You're wearing a Spider-Man shirt too.
I am wearing a Spider-Man shirt. My spider sense absolutely went off at that. Post-credit scene. Either the post-credit scene that they're adding on to Avengers for this weekend or the post-credit scene on Spider-Man will 100%. I will be so surprised if it doesn't hint at mutants.
Oh, interesting. Because they just got them back.
Yeah, because they just got them back. So, and if they're smart, if they're really smart, what they'll do is they'll drop Avengers this week, and everybody will go, maybe they're going to show mutants, because that's what everybody wants. And they won't. They'll hint at Fantastic Four, right? Which is, I mean, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. All of those gamma waves that went off every time somebody snapped their fingers on Earth. There was the Infinity War one. There was Thanos destroying the stones, which matter can't be created or destroyed, just transformed. Where did all that energy from the Infinity Stones go when he destroyed them? The Hulk snap and then the Iron Man snap. That's 4 snaps, 3 of them on Earth in the last 5 years. If they come back in and they go, over the 5 years since since Thanos' first snap on Earth, some mutants started showing up. Professor X, Magneto, some of the older ones, right? Mm-hmm. So that they have a little bit of seniority. And then the second snap on Earth, the Hulk one, and actually like the 2 snaps happening one right after the other, all that gamma happening, it started triggering X genes, which already existed. Like, this is the way you get around it, is that it's not a retcon.
Right. It's just
it's an activation. It's a trigger, right? So that's why the story is happening now, is that it just nothing had triggered it.
If they don't do that, I'll be mad.
This is the most logical path.
Yeah.
Anything else is going to feel shoehorned. Yeah. I think that smarter people than myself have figured this out already and are already working on it. I think the reason why I'm figuring it out is because they dropped hints in previous movies. In Avengers Age of Ultron, right? That's where the 2 mutant characters that we have in that, they were called enhanced, but mutants. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, that's where they got their powers, from an Infinity Stone.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And then we got reminded of that with Captain Marvel. It's where she got her stones.
Because the Tesseract. And then it was so important in Endgame at the beginning of the movie that we understand every time the gauntlet is used, it sends out a pulse. Right.
There's a dispersal of energy. There's consequences to that. Right? So they use it in that movie as a plot device to find Thanos, but also
it could be it's like
other times that we've seen that gamma energy go out, it created the Hulk. Right. Yeah. Right? It
created all these things.
It made all those other characters. Gamma waves, if the Fantastic Four were up in space.
Oh, yeah.
That's where they got their powers. Cosmic radiation, but caused by the Infinity Stones, right? And then, like I said, all the mutants. So, and you've got that 5-year gap, so you can say that's where
Victor Von Doom was like in something when it snapped, and then when he came back, it was like, worse or something. Who knows?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like if they play all that stuff out, I think we're good to go.
But okay,
that's the next 10 years.
You know
who's
more
my
than
big
me, though?
bad?
Yeah, who's your big bad? Because I don't know enough to know.
I think we build to a halfway point in the next 5 years. That is the X-Men. I really want to see Avengers versus X-Men because that's my favorite Marvel Comics storyline in the history of Marvel Comics. I think we stay the hell away from the Dark Phoenix, and none of that stuff happens for a very long time, but will happen eventually. I mean, you want some of the Avengers' biggest bads. You want consequences from Endgame to carry through and to be the effect that or the cause that creates the effect of whoever the next big bad is. You do Kang the Conqueror, because Kang's from the future, and he basically returns to the past to destroy the Avengers before they can defeat him, right? Before they become powerful enough to stop him. But of course, they're already powerful enough to stop him. That is one of the most logical. They don't have the time stone anymore. They don't have the tools to necessarily defeat him. Iron Man's not around, so they're going to need to rely on some of these other geniuses. Things will play out differently because, you have to involve the Fantastic Four, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that they could do if they're really crazy and really bold, and this would be really great to lead into Avengers versus X-Men as the next 10 years after that, is to do Onslaught. So Onslaught is a mutant problem, but a mutant problem that the whole Marvel universe has to deal with. And it's basically, there's nothing basic about the Onslaught story, but they have to make it basic. But essentially, Professor X and Magneto, as well as Onslaught itself, merge together. Like their consciousnesses merge together, and Professor X's consciousness, along with Magneto's sort of desire for world domination, blah blah blah, creates a supervillain. Because Professor X is super powerful. Right. Magneto is also. They're both the highest class of mutants, right? So, like the most dangerous. Yeah, and you can see that. The other thing that could end up happening is they could do a House of M sort of thing with Scarlet Witch, where mutants come, things happen, and then she uses her powers to basically erase them from reality, which would cause other problems, which would create more stories. But I don't know, like there are so many great stories to pull from. But I think if you want to keep it to classic stuff, I think Kang makes the most sense. Because he is the most Thanos-like, if you want to repeat that.
But you could also go in a completely different direction and start and do like that. It really is like a maybe mutants versus X-Men is then Avengers versus X-Men, or you go something like that where it really is just about the stories and the humanity.
To me, Avengers versus X-Men is Civil War. That's how you repeat Civil War. Right. So if you look at it, Civil War is kind of the waypoint, right? Right. Yeah. And if you wanted to do that again, you'd build up towards that at about the 6 or 7 year mark. Right. And then the consequences of Avengers versus X-Men are what lead into whatever the other big conflict is. That's what I would like to see. But I don't know. Because we don't know what the next slate of movies is, with the exception of obviously Spider-Man next week, and then Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, and Guardians 3. And Captain Marvel 2 has kind of been hinted at, and Black Widow hasn't been announced, but apparently they're filming. So, other than those, we don't really know. I say other than those, I just named 6 movies,
but still,
we don't have like the 4-5 year slate like we did leading up to Infinity War, which eventually got split into 2 movies and blah blah.
So I don't think they know yet.
There's a lot of unknowns, and I think as post Spider-Man going into Phase 4, because Spider-Man's the end of Phase 3. Okay. So going into Phase 4, we'll once we know what that slate is, I think I'll have better speculation. But
my mic isn't muted, right? It's such a small question. I have this red button.
If it's blinking, then it's muted.
Oh, I won't press the button. Don't worry. Fancy new mics.
Cool. We went really long on that email.
We did.
So I'm going to skip some of these some of these news
is,
items.
you don't come here for the news.
No.
If you are, you're looking
There's a
at
new Lion King clip
terrible
that
place.
has singing in it, which is in the.
But nobody's
fantastic.
singing in
But we
it.
don't see
It
them.
has
Yeah.
songs. I think that is a misnomer because I got tricked by that. I was expecting some singing, and it was just a song.
Yeah.
But it was good and beautiful.
I don't want to get into this whole J.K. Rowling transphobia Harry Potter thing. It's a
disappointing.
long
But
conversation.
she's also she's a disappointing person though
Yep.
overall. So
Hey, look, I started disregarding everything she had to say the second she started talking about wizard poop. Not important. Look, George Lucas has done a lot of things, and microscopic bugs in your bloodstream that communicate with the Force is pretty obnoxious. I
Sorry.
personally can handle it and can justify it, and I think on the Attack of the Clones, or no, wait, not when did I do that? Revenge of the Sith episode. I think I justified midichlorians'
yeah, you
existence pretty well,
justified.
but he's never talked about where Jedi's poop, and
yeah, there you go.
J.K. Rowling has talked about. She has ruined her own franchise with that. And then on top of that, it turns out she's a pretty terrible human being. So
Wizards Unite though, everybody's doing that. Is that just Pokemon
Everybody's
Go
doing
except
that.
with Wizards? I
Yeah.
haven't done it yet.
yeah. So the important part, the only thing that's important is that J.K. Rowling is supporting transphobic Twitter accounts. She's been doing that for a few years.
She's been doing it for a while,
Yeah.
so it's like it's not like news,
It's a pattern.
news,
This
but
isn't
it's like a pattern. Yeah.
But she's following a very, very militant transphobic person. And as a result, I basically just don't do anything that would give her money. I think you can still be a Harry Potter fan. You can still love Harry Potter. Buy used copies of the books. Go to Etsy for merchandise. Don't buy officially licensed merchandise. That's a great one because you're also supporting like independent artists, which is better than giving Hot Topic more money. I play Wizards Unite because it's cool to be a wizard and hang out with your friends, but don't do any of the microtransactions, and don't use Pottermore to do sorting. That's kind of been I actually went to Anne Honey to get an official queer statement on this, and she said that I could use that with the rubber stamp. That's her official statement. She doesn't speak for the entire queer community, obviously. Not that needs to be said, but yeah, she was like, these things, because I went to her because she posted it on Facebook, and then I was like, this is weird territory for Amanda and I to get into because it's a couple of straighter-sins.
But also watch
about it.
watch for TERFs in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, man. And if you don't know what that is, it's trans exclusionary radical feminists.
Yes.
So we started the podcast with feminism, and we wait.
Well,
that
for
was
the
maybe
uncut people,
uncut
it's
stuff.
fine. No, you can mention uncut stuff because
guess
then the
so.
people who aren't paying for the uncut know what they're missing.
Yeah, that's our feminism.
Yeah. It was a great conversation at the beginning of
It
this
was
episode.
actually, that was fun.
Kind of wore myself out with it. We went to some heavy places. Explain that a little bit more, just a little tiny bit more for people.
So there's, in terms of feminism, it's a gamut, right? And there's lots of different beliefs and all this sort of stuff. But when the idea of like excluding people that identify as women because they're not born with ovaries becomes a radicalized feminist approach, and it's a type of feminism. Like there are women that are out there that are like, you are not a woman, and it's just such a even
trans
within
women are still, because they were born with male genitalia, they still benefited from
this patriarchy, and or the idea that they like twist things around, and it's the idea of how you grew up, or like the society and its social structures, and it's the idea of
which is a conversation worth having, but not at the cost, at the expense of people who are regularly victimized and persecuted
and that's the
for
irony.
wanting to be who they are on the inside, on the outside.
The irony of stuff like that is that the idea that like women coming together to protect other women because they want a world that's better and free from abuse and degradation, when trans women are some of the most like persecuted groups of population,
especially
in
trans
the whole
women
world.
of color. Like
It's just
it's staggering when you look at the real statistics.
Yeah, and it's a thing where I mean I don't know. Like you can argue anything if you're in a different mindset, but really what it comes down to is the idea of just like human decency and giving people like a place and a voice. And I think that there's really this like I don't know.
So the cliff notes of this, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it in the future as it continues to be an issue, and it comes up with other franchises and creators and all that sort of thing, because it never seems to end. Is it's not necessary to throw the baby out with the bathwater in this one. You can, with the term I suppose is cancel J.K. Rowling without getting rid of Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is bigger than her contributions to it now.
You can just be conscious of like what you put your money towards and what you support. And I mean, it comes down to like I'm very like there's things you do in your like the idea of you can be now conscious of this because you're allowed to unabashedly love your Harry Potter thing. But for example, there's a lot of turf events that are happening in Vancouver, and people are speaking up and stopping supporting. Like I think there was something that was going to be hosted at UBC, and like the school spoke up, and the kids and the students and teachers were like, "Please don't let these events happen on this ground. This is a safe space, and we want people to feel welcome here." So it's just there's other things that you can do. It's not just about the particular fandom or the particular people. It's more just about being active in a conversation and trying to contribute in a positive way.
Cool. Yeah, we're not going to talk about Toy Story 4. Stranger Things 3 trailer.
Although I did rewatch that. That looks fun. I'm so excited.
Spooky.
I love Stranger. I held off for a year before watching Stranger Things, man.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I was like, what is all this hype about? This stupid show. Everybody loves it.
I don't remember what triggered Crystal on it, but she, I think it might have actually been you watching it a year later, because then she was like, "Oh, I want to watch it now," and I was like, "Really?" Because it's kind of scary. And she's like, "Yeah." So we started watching it, and she loved it, and then we watched season 2 together. Granted, I blew through season 2, and when season 3 comes out next week,
I'm gonna watch it all that weekend.
Watch it all that weekend.
It's so strategic. It's coming out the 4th of July. Hey, that's like pretty smart.
Great.
I mean, sucks for us because we don't get that day off. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved season 2. I know that a lot of people didn't, but
I liked it. It was all right. I mean,
I liked
there's certain episodes I don't like, but overall.
And
I think that they're gonna keep making good stuff. It's a good cast. I like the ensemble.
I think the problem with season 2, and I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens in season 3, is that season 1 was very focused on what kind of 80s content it was sending up, and then season 2 branched out, and that's where it bit them in the ass, because not everybody understood all of the reference material. So all of the stuff with 11 when she goes to the city and like that whole thing, people ship characters and they don't like it when those characters are separated by story. So that was a big part of it. And then B, I don't think that people really understood the inspiration behind those stories, because that story, her storyline, was inspired by some much more sort of like niche 80s sci-fi horror type stuff, not the
classic 80s
like the Steven Spielberg, George Lucas sort of, because season 1 is very Spielberg influenced, along with a couple other things, but like it's very like E.T., Close Encounters, Goonies, which he didn't direct but he produced, right? Like it's like there's a lot of the Spielberg DNA in season 1. Season 2 starts to go into some other stuff. It starts to go into some Cronenberg and some Dante, and like it goes into these other areas that people were not as familiar with in terms of mainstream. So I think that's why you saw that sort of reaction. Season 3 looks like it's going back into
Summer of Sam vibes, and
it's much more Spielberg from the trailers. It looks much more Spielberg, and it looks very John Hughes.
Oh yeah,
with all the the mall stuff and So
which
I'm excited. I'm really excited. The other thing I'm really excited for that's coming out in July is The Boys. Which I've never read the comic, but the idea is basically in a world full of superheroes, you've got it's like if it's another one of these, if Superman were more realistic, if the Justice League were more realistic, and like if these people acted less like iconic heroes and more like jerky human beings. Superman is essentially a conceited jerk. And in the trailer, he's like, I'm the most powerful. So he's not Superman, but he's their version. I'm the most powerful superhero on the planet. I can do whatever I want. That's sort of like the idea there. Yeah. And then The Boys, led by Carl Urban's character, which I don't know the name of yet, but Carl Urban. So I'm in already. Carl Urban, don't say anything else. I'm done. I'll watch it. Yeah. But Carl Urban's character leads a group called The Boys, who essentially they're self ascribed duty is to keep these superheroes in check, because the heroes just kind of like wantonly destroy things. It's the argument against Man of Steel, right? It's going to be Batman v Superman, but good. Yeah.
Okay. So I was talking about that obscure like YA book that I was talking about last week called, what is it? Arch Nemesis. Something, but that's like the conceit of it, except in YA. This is obviously much more gruesome because somebody explodes in the trailer because the Flash runs right through them, which I just think is such an interesting conceit because, that stuff happens. But that's sort of exactly what the thing I was talking about last week was the idea that if you have these superheroes that run the world and there's people that see them for what they are or could be or the bad sides of them, and then you actually follow it through the villain lens. I think that's like just an interesting twist on storytelling. Yeah. And so I'm interested.
Yeah, and like I said, Carl.
And it's Amazon, man.
It's Amazon. Amazon's killing it. Amazon's doing some really great stuff. Yeah. Not to mention, in Canada, this is a pro tip to Canadian listeners. If it's not on Netflix anymore, check Amazon Prime. It's probably there. So a lot of shows that have disappeared off of Netflix in the last 5-10 years, they're all on Amazon Prime. So I started watching Happy Endings again because that show is so good. Have you ever watched it?
I have, yeah. I quite like the one dude in it that also then went on the Mindy Project.
Adam Pally?
Yeah, he's great.
He is great. I didn't know that he was on Mindy Project, but I just took a shot in the dark that's who you would be talking about. The gay guy, right? Yeah. I love everybody from that except for what's her face? The
Alicia, what's her face?
No, the ditzy one. The brunette, the ditzy brunette.
Oh, I don't remember her name. I don't know.
I can't. I'm so glad that I've removed her name from my.
Marlon Wayans is in that, isn't he? Though.
Sorry.
Marlon Wayans is in that.
No, Damon Wayans Jr.
Damon Wayans Jr. Whatever. One of the Wayans brothers. I don't know either one of them. 2 for 2 episodes,
Amanda. Anyways.
I have an associative brain. I don't pay too much attention to labels such as names and locations and movie titles.
Let's move on. Let's talk about The Empire Strikes Back. Let's get into it.
I mean,
Star Wars.
It's The Empire Strikes Back. A lot of stuff happens in it.
Yeah, it's widely considered the best Star Wars movie ever.
It is.
Directed by Irvin Kershner.
There's so much shipping. Okay, so here's my ultimate question.
Yeah.
Yoda says there is another.
Yeah.
Did they know at that time that they were going to choose Leia to be the other?
Yeah.
Then why the hell did she kiss him in the beginning? Did they know that they were going to be brother and sister? It's just so weird and gross. Like, why?
I don't know. Why not?
Because it's weird.
It is weird. It is weird and gross. But
I mean, it works for the...
It's
like it works in that moment. If you don't know that they're related, it works and it's kind of funny. But also, it kind of makes Luke pathetic. Like there's this thing where it's like I find it really interesting. I mean, he is. He's such a whiny baby. Yep. Did you laugh? Do you laugh out loud when he does the no thing? Because I definitely laugh out loud like every time I see.
Oh, when like Vader's like, I know I'm your father, and he goes no, and he gets chipmunk face.
Yeah.
No, I don't laugh out loud, but it is cringy. But
it's like. There's so much emotion.
It's cringy, but it's cringy because it's so real. I think it's
that's fair.
I think that Mark Hamill is a very underrated actor. I think that it takes a little bit to get the really good stuff out of him because he's in a lot of stuff and sometimes he can be a little bit But in Star Wars in particular, he is
He's quite good.
Fantastic.
And the thing is, he's not, because he's so, like, he's such a different, I don't watch it thinking about Mark Hamill when I watch them.
He's
He's
just
Luke,
Luke Skywalker,
right? So it's just like a different sort of story. But I find it really fascinating about these movies in general, because it's such an odd thing that Luke is created as a character that is explicitly not for me as an audience member.
Yeah.
Like, he's created to be the like the entryway into this franchise because he's the like lone hero or whatever. But I don't know. I don't identify with him as the main hero, right? Like, he's not the
Who's
he's
the
not
main
my
hero
wingman.
for you?
Well, no, he is the main hero, but he's not my entryway into it.
Yeah.
I much rather like care about like Leia's story or Han's story. But as an audience member, I've talked about this multiple times on podcasts before, where I often identify with the secondary characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, that makes it more interesting for me. Like, what is it? Like, in like main franchises, I very rarely, like in Bones or whatever, I don't care about those lead characters. I care about the secondary characters.
Yeah.
The new girl, like in sitcoms that are subpar, I always care about the secondary characters, not the main characters. So it's the idea that you try to make me care about this main character, like their journey is the one you have to care about, and I'm like, what about all these other like ensemble people? Like, what are they doing, and who do they love, and
Yeah.
what are their stories? So for me, though, that was nice to come back at this one, because like I was saying last week, I wasn't sure. I forgot a lot of the little details of it, and the relationship between Leia and Han is really fun to like watch again and be like, oh, they're really cute. And how crappy the Millennium Falcon is. That is like, I get like the other, I forget how terrible it is. Like, it really is. They always talk about it being a hunk of junk, but it always, in my memory, is the thing that saved them all the time. And it really doesn't in this one. It really fails them. And I think that's like, you have to knock your heroes down to build them back up, or whatever it is in the second act, or whatever the newsroom quote is. And that is really what the like this movie is the like, they all go through hell and don't really come out of it at the end, which is, as a viewer, as like me knowing my things that I enjoy and the fluff that I enjoy, it's not the thing that I'm necessarily. That's why I didn't gravitate to it as a kid, because I want the happy ending. I want the other two have the happy ending, but for the core of it and for the characters, this one is quite standout. And actually, something that's really interesting after watching Solo, the thing that's the most interesting about Solo is knowing that the ship is actually the droid or whatever, and that's really cool, because you get the Millennium Falcon is more of a character in this one than in any of the other ones.
And when 3PO says, I don't know where your ship learned to speak, but it has the most peculiar dialect.
Yeah, like, it's just a cute.
And now we know that that's L3, so he plugs in, and it's that's the voice that he hears, right? That's the droid brain that he's talking to. Yeah.
So I just thought that was cool, knowing that back history of the Millennium Falcon, I think. And you had said something about the idea of watching Solo going into this and the Lando and the Han story. Mm-hmm. They have things between Solo and this, yeah? Or is this is it?
At the end of Solo, when Han shows up and wins the Falcon back from Lando, that's the last time that he saw him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't watched Solo. It's on
yeah,
Netflix.
and that's what when Han's like, Lando, interesting, and then they go there, and then Chewie says something, and then Han goes, that was a long time ago. I'm sure he's forgotten about that, right? And it's like that they're talking about Solo. That's what they're talking about, right? Yeah. Is like, well, like you destroyed his ship. I still don't think he's forgiven you for that. And then Han's like, that was a long time ago. Relax. And then what's the first thing that Lando says, basically? He's like, what did you do to my ship? And then they have the conversation, you lost her to me fair and square. Yeah. And it's like, that's the whole thing of like, and I think like the thing with Lando in Solo at the end is that they've got him dead to rights. They've caught him cheating. Han's got the evidence of it. And beyond that, Chewbacca could just rip his arms off. And Lando knows that, right? So like it's kind of, like we're taking the Falcon now because you cheated. But the other part of that Han neglects to tell in that story is that he bluffed the stakes in that first when he technically lost to Lando, even though Lando cheated. He said that he had a VCX, which he didn't have any ship. The VCX 100 is the ship that they fly in Star Wars Rebels, by the way, for anybody who cares to know that piece of information, which is like, it's interesting because there's like an ongoing rivalry now since the introduction of the Ghost, which is the VCX 100 in Star Wars Rebels. And there's an episode of Forces of Destiny that takes place just after Return of the Jedi, where we get some information that Harrison Dula, who flies the Ghost, and Han have kind of an ongoing rivalry of like which ship is the better ship. Nice. And so for Lando to be like and Han to say VCX in order to pique Lando's interest, and then Lando being like, "Ooh, a VCX, like that's a nice ship." It's like that is. This is why I say Solo. All of the Star Wars geeks, like the hardcore Star Wars geeks, were like, Solo. Alden Ehrenreich isn't my Han Solo. Get out of here. What a terrible movie. Piece of junk. They missed the point. The movie was specifically made for them.
Yeah. Right,
specifically. It references Masters of the Terras Kazi, which is one of the most obscure Star Wars references you could possibly have. It's a video game on the PlayStation 1. Like a terrible video game. Yeah. I find it just staggering how many people didn't go see that movie that were hardcore Star Wars fans in the community, and the conversation around that when that movie was a love letter from John and Lawrence Kasdan to the fans, specifically from John Kasdan.
It's like fun. It's fun. I really like it. I think I only saw it the once. I want to re-see, like, it is a thing, but like we're going through all of these, and I'm like, I want to do Rogue One and Solo at some point during. This is so fun. It's such an awesome exercise that I would say I highly recommend anyone. Like, I would never have done this, gone through and like with reverence, rewatched everything, and not just sit and binge it, but like actively choose to put 3 hours of my time away or 2 hours or whatever every week to watch a Star Wars movie. And I only watched the one. I only watched Revenge of the Sith with a friend. Otherwise, I've been watching them like while I'm doing something or like sitting there and just like watching them myself. And it's just like, it's been like really nice to just go back and totally revisit something that I loved. And Yoda is so great. And it's just nice to see these characters that I'm farther away from and come back to them.
I think with so many of these characters, and it's kind of what you were saying about the Falcon, after a certain amount of time, we start to idealize things and we start to turn them into our memory of them and not the reality. And I think Yoda is one of those characters because there's so many versions of him now that to go back and watch Empire post Last Jedi and post Clone Wars, and to really, really look at the character of Yoda as he was originally introduced, and the original performance by Frank Oz, and really see like who was that character, because I think a lot of the association with Yoda now is two things. It's the prequels because he has so much screen time in them, and it's lunchboxes, etc.
Like that's what it is. People see the face and they
because
like,
Yoda
is
easy to. So there are a handful of characters: Darth Vader, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2, Yoda, Stormtroopers. They're easy to reproduce because they're cartoons, right? They have bold lines and shapes. They were created. They're not made like a person's face. Han Solo, just a guy with brown hair. Luke Skywalker is just a guy with blonde hair. Princess Leia has the buns. It's a little bit easier. But still, breaking down their features, they're actually fairly generic people. And it's hard to merchandise those. It's like the other characters are so much more iconic, and Yoda is one of those that is so iconic. And I mean, like, you watch a Harry Potter movie and a goblin comes up and you're like, oh, they're just pink Yodas with pointy noses, right? Because anytime now we see a diminutive character with big ears in a movie, it's Yoda. It's the first thing that people think of is Yoda. It's, if you've never even seen Star Wars, you know who Yoda is, right? But the character of Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back is one of the greatest contributions to cinema that George Lucas gave, because that character is so complex, he's so rich, and it's a freaking Muppet.
Yeah, and the acting for like that was the thing too with rewatching it, is those moments of him, like when Luke goes into the cave, there are like 2 long like shots of Yoda acting, like, and you feel the emotion of
And
this
he
puppet.
doesn't do a
Like,
lot.
Yeah.
He doesn't do a lot. Like, he's not.
Yeah.
There are some animatronics. The eyes can open, they can close, the brow can furrow, the ears can move up and down. But it's very limited, and the
he doesn't
lips
have
don't
lip
move
sync.
at all.
Yeah, he doesn't have lip sync. Like he's
Just
a
opening.
puppet. He just opens.
But it's Frank Oz,
Yeah.
who is also responsible for Miss Piggy. For
puppet master. He's a puppet master.
he's,
like,
I mean, like Frank Oz, along with Jim Henson, are the geniuses, incomparable, right? I mean, like the skill that the two of them had in creating and crafting these characters that become so iconic, that become real, like full stop real. Yoda is a real character, to the point that the puppet versions, specifically the Empire and Return of the Jedi puppets, are more real than the high fidelity CG versions from the prequels.
because there's something different in that tangibility of the acting and like the intentionality.
In the
because
moment.
when you can do so much with an like a motion or a character or an eyebrow or whatever in CG space, you get a little bit like you lose some of that nuance in terms of like a performer. Like it's a performer as opposed to performance by committee, which, you know, I work in 3D animation.
Yeah.
That's a million people get to comment on what
It's
it looks like.
it's both at the same time that it's incredible. It's also it is what it is. It's a
just so
performance
simple,
by
yeah.
committee. So sometimes you get Thanos and sometimes you get Jar Jar Binks, right?
Yeah.
Like it's both sides of that. But but like you say, when it comes to Yoda, it's like you've got there is still a committee there, because you've got Frank Oz driving the performance for sure, but you do have the animatronic operators sitting off by the side, adding layers onto what he's doing. You do have Stuart Freeborn, who sculpted Yoda and created the look of Yoda. That
I guess I will say the
contribute to that.
tangibility
But
of, like, when I think about performance, the idea of like being in a moment, and there's just something
it's the
slightly
in the
different
moment
about
part.
animators acting and like actors acting. Like it's slightly different. Like they're the same. Animators are the actors of the animation world. Like when you go into it, like that's really the people that are giving you the performance, are the animators. But there's something different in the tangibility of performance, and so it's why mocap is so different from, and why it becomes more complex when you have mocap animation and you have like animation that's completely CG. It's just an interesting.
But Yoda is just one of those characters that I think that people take for granted, and if you don't go back and watch Empire Strikes Back and really sort of listen and pay attention, and Lawrence Kasdan's words coming out of that character are a big part of it as well. George Lucas created the character, but there's so many other people that contribute to it that get it to where it is. But he is it's just so rich. He's so textured in the performance, from the silly stuff to the serious stuff to the sort of more like the quieter moments. Like you said, the shots where it's like there's nobody else on screen. It's a puppet, and maybe R2 is off to the side as well, giving again a tin can giving a performance as well. I mean, like this is the amazing thing about film, and it's the most amazing thing about Star Wars, is that like people love Yoda, they love R2-D2. R2-D2 is a trash can with blinking lights that beeps and whistles, and yet we believe him as a character.
Yeah. The weird thing about watching this time is like Dagobah is that the things that probably took the most out of that, because it's like a soundstage, right? Like you can sort of see it, is that they have the iguana and the snake.
Yeah.
And the like scenes where they put with intentionality this iguana moving through the scenes, like that would have taken up. That's more of it. It's like the performance is like
there were
placing
snakes everywhere. So Mark Hamill talks about it a lot, and it was like in order to create that swamp, like it reeked. It was the worst. He was always wet, like damp and just gross. And there were animals all over that thing. And it was just covered in snakes. And there's the great moment when he's in Yoda's hut and the snake is crawling across the thing and he just picks it up and moves it away. And it's like, I'm sure that casualness of that moment came with being in that environment for an extended period of time. But yeah, there are a lot of elements there that I think are lost in the newer.
It's just cool, like
movies.
You have like a tangibility to interact with, and there's a certain like it's the beautiful, like when he jumps down into the
water,
into the what are you
into the water.
No. When he jumps into the cave, he comes down into it. They waited until that iguana crawled up a certain amount. Like the framing of it is like really like there's something tangible about that. That if you just have a camera facing a hole and you're like, we'll CGI in the thing later. Like it's just not quite the same in terms of like how it plays out. So it's really cool to go back and watch these. And it makes me like I don't want them to redo them. That's the biggest thing that keeps like freaking me out.
Redo
about
Star Wars?
Yeah.
No, they'll never do it.
I don't know, man.
They will never do it in live action. I guarantee you.
I hope so.
I think it's Titmouse Animation, which is local. It's Vancouver. That's doing
and LA.
Is there an LA one as well?
Yes, because they're unionized in LA and it's a thing.
They're doing the Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures animated shorts, and they're going through and they're picking key moments in Star Wars to kind of recreate in this great like anime inspired style, and it's phenomenal. I love it. I love what they're doing, and I would love it if they went and they redid all 3 original trilogy movies. But
I feel like you were talking about this before too.
They're fantastic. They're so good, but I think that's the closest we'll get to a remake. I don't think that they'll ever remake Star Wars.
Right.
We might get those stories again in other mediums. Like I've got the manga up on the shelf, right? Which is like they're exactly the stories, but they're manga. And we'll get them in comic book form and possibly in animated form in the future. But I don't think that they would ever. I don't think they would ever redo those movies.
I have to now Google everything that I'm saying on the podcast because I always do that. I don't know if Titmouse is unionized in the States. I just know that it's starting a whole conversation up here because the studios are linked in the union.
Well, they're doing awesome animation. That's all I know.
Yeah. Everybody likes working there.
What else about Empire? I mean, obviously
what can you say about perfection?
The duel between Vader and Luke.
I listened for the lack of music because you'd put that seed in my head. So that was an interesting way to also look at it. Like it's very. It
cuts out and it doesn't come back in until the moment when they're on the weather vane.
Yeah, but it totally makes it like a lot of it works really well in terms of like you like it.
Empire Strikes Back. It's one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah. I will say, I just for like the sake of being controversial, like it's not a shoo-in for me over A New Hope, man.
Really? Over A New Hope even? Yeah. Okay. I mean, let's get into that. Empire is so hard to discuss because what hasn't been said, like it's
like you just, and I mean, it's it's iconic.
This is tough. This one is tough between Empire and A New Hope. Return of the Jedi is easier for me because I do think that I put it above. But Empire. My thing with Empire, and the only reason that I'm willing to put A New Hope above it, is that Empire does not stand alone. Yeah. And that's something that it's controversial to say, and I think I've gotten a lot of flack in the past for making that argument because people go, no, it is a great. It doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end.
No. It starts in the middle. Yeah. Totally. And that's I think the thing for me is that it feels incomplete. Whereas the other two feel like either the beginning and the end. Because A New Hope is a movie in itself, right? I mean, it always was meant to be, right? Like
it was filmed that way.
That's what it is. And for me, Jedi is like this closure film, and you get there, and it's like coming into this thing where you really do have all these characters that you know, but you sort of can like.
And I think that's where The Last Jedi in time is going to find its audience, is once we have Rise of Skywalker, it's going to bookend that, and then all of a sudden Last Jedi is going to make sense, and there's going to be all this work that we can do as fans to reconcile things between those three movies once we have the whole picture, but we don't have the whole picture. Right now with Empire, we have the whole picture, and it's difficult to put there's mental gymnastics that have to be done in order to put your mind in the frame to understand there was a point in time where this was one of 2 Star Wars movies.
Right, yeah.
And the only other Star Wars content at the time was a couple of novels and Han Solo novels that were very similar to Solo, and some comic books that were wildly different from anything else Star Wars does. The Marvel comics are so different. They're awesome in their own right, but they are not true Star Wars. Because true Star Wars didn't have a definition yet. It didn't have a definition until after, until after Return of the Jedi. Because I think it's kind of similar to Indiana Jones. It's like you put out Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you go, okay, that's an Indiana Jones movie, and then Temple of Doom comes out, and you go, oh, that doesn't seem. Is that an Indiana Jones movie too?
Right.
Because it's so different. And then you put out The Last Crusade, and it's like, okay, that's a lot more like the first one. That now Star Wars, now Indiana Jones is more defined. Return of the Jedi kind of caps it and goes like, yeah, this is what Star Wars is. And then obviously the prequels come along and completely ignore all of that and do their own thing. But that's where I find that The Force Awakens is such a perfect Star Wars movie, because The Force Awakens takes all 3 of the original trilogy films, distills them, and pulls out the elements that create a Star Wars movie. And that's
the formula.
Yeah, like J.J. Abrams is really good at that.
Yeah.
It's like a cook or a baker that's able to take a bite of something and deconstruct the dish and go like, oh, you use tarragon instead of something else. I don't know. Yeah. Right. But like they're able to tell that just with a taste. J.J. Abrams can do that. And he did that for The Force Awakens. But yeah, Empire.
I don't know, man.
I put it above A New Hope. I have to, just because the fidelity of it is so much higher. Irvin Kershner is a much better director. Well, yeah. We get better performances out of all of the actors.
Yeah.
But with the caveat that Empire does not exist without standing on the shoulders of A New Hope. So A New Hope is a very, very important movie. The Empire Strikes Back may be one of the greatest films ever made, and like I'll stand by that. But Star Wars, later renamed as Episode 4 A New Hope, is the most important film of the modern era.
But also the thing that people is that it's such a perfect hero's journey, and there's very few film there's lots, because it's a trope for a reason, but it can be so perfectly distilled down into like the core beats of like perfect storytelling that I just think there's something to that. Yeah. And again, it's my childhood speaking. I never sat down and was like, yep, this time I'm very excited to watch The Empire Strikes Back. I would watch it because I was watching all 3 of them together and I wanted to get to Jedi again. Like that's how it informed my childhood. It was always a sequel. And it bothers me just on principle that when people say that sequels usually suck, people are like, but The Empire Strikes Back is a great sequel. And then you're like, no, it's the middle film of a trilogy, which is different, first of all. And it's like not, it's like, it's just such an odd film. Like it doesn't quite fit the sequel thing, but it also shouldn't be used as like, because it is kind of still a sequel. It
redefined what sequel could mean, right? Because a lot of the time before that, sequel was let's do the movie again. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And also before that, not a lot of movies had sequels. Yeah. Like sequels were a weird thing back then. Now sequels are a given. Like you make the first movie in order to make the sequels. Franchises are what everybody's after. Very few movies are made with the intent of just making that movie. So I really like the movie Oblivion, the Tom Cruise movie, because Oblivion is, could very easily be turned into a franchise with a couple of tweaks to that story. But instead, it is totally encapsulated It is totally self-sufficient, beginning, middle, and end.
Nice.
The end is another beginning to another story, but a story that doesn't need to be told, a story that's implied by the ending, right? And that movie, it just exists, just all by itself.
Haven't seen it,
and that's all it needs to be. It's a fantastic movie.
Nice.
But yeah, everybody wants it to be a franchise now, and that is the Star Wars effect.
Yeah,
that's Star Wars and Jaws came out kind of back to back and changed.
Yeah,
Superman's in there as well. That's because that's in the same era, but.
I just Googled it because I didn't know. 77, 80, 83?
Yeah.
So there's 3 years between each of them?
There's 3 years between each movie, yeah. Okay, so we have a split decision. So what is that? What do we do in this instance?
I mean, I can defer to pop culture, and I can say that we can do The Empire Strikes Back as the...
By a hair.
But like, because I believe that films are only as good as the audiences that they attract and the type of conversation that they elicit in the general public, and because The Empire Strikes Back has such a cultural cachet as a... I don't know. I always defer to the idea of like objectively good versus subjectively good. And in this case, I will say that as much as it can be, Empire is probably objectively better than A New Hope. And so I'll concede my childhood.
Okay. So, I mean, our ranking continues to just be the
order,
the reverse order, right?
Yeah.
So, Phantom Menace, Attack
Are we gonna
of the
go down
Clones.
next? Are we gonna go down next week? Because I'm gonna fight for Jedi.
No, I don't think so. Because I mean, like, spoiler alert: my ranking goes in reverse order until you get to. It's going to be really interesting to watch The Last Jedi again, and when we get to the sequels, I will actually. I didn't watch A New Hope. I didn't watch Empire Strikes Back because I've watched them recently, so I didn't watch them again these last couple weeks. And I won't watch Return of the Jedi either because I just watched it. But when we get to the sequels, because I haven't seen them as much, like this is the thing. But
I'm the opposite. I've just seen them both multiple times because I watch them on my own. I sit there and I'm like, oh my god, I really want to watch this. Yeah.
Well, I was working in here on Saturday night and I put The Last Jedi on and I watched it. So, but I'm not nearly as familiar with them as I am.
Yeah. That's fair, yeah.
Because I used to spend not hours, days alone watching those movies. Yeah. If you want to be a Star Wars expert, it's just like I've been saying about whenever for the longest time people would ask the question when they see me draw something, they'd be like, how do you do that? And I would be like, it's practice. Yeah. And now I'm so sick of saying that because people just be like, oh, I wish I could do that. And it's like, well, you could. Yeah. You just have to practice. You just have to be intentional about it. Anybody can draw. If you can hold a pencil, you can draw. But and hold a pencil, it doesn't even need to be with your hand. There are many people in history who have proven that, and not even just people, elephants and all sorts of animals. But now what I like to say, because I hate that question, that sort of line of questioning of like, oh, how do you do that? I wish I could do that. It's like, you wish you could do this? You wish? Because this is the result of a decade of loneliness and sitting in my room by myself watching Star Wars movies and drawing because I didn't have anybody to hang out with. So yeah, you wish you could draw this well? It comes with a price, but that's all right. You wish you were as big of a Star Wars expert as me? No, you don't. Go out, spend time with human beings, be a real person. Don't have all of the problems that I have associating with human beings because I'd rather sit alone in the dark and watch Star Wars. Right? It's This is
this thing I really struggled with that this weekend where I just made the decision halfway through Saturday to just be alone, and it makes me feel so guilty all the time. But also, I can make that choice.
If it helps, I'm very jealous because I wanted nothing more than some alone time this weekend. And granted, I did get some alone time on Saturday. Crystal and Cara went out, but in that alone time, I did not get to do what I wanted to do. I'm prepping the house for the new baby, so I have many Tim the Toolman Taylor tasks to tackle.
I should come and...
There were a lot of T's in that sentence. Did you notice?
I did.
So
it was
much
very alliterative.
I got a tool belt for Father's Day and put it to good use on Sunday.
Right on.
But that's the price. That's the price of also being exhausted from running around after a toddler.
Having a loving family.
It's so difficult to quantify where the good part is, but every once in a while when I'm on the floor and she's rolling around on top of me and giggling, it's like, okay, fine.
She is super cute.
She's the best.
She's really great.
She's the best, and we're going to multiply that by 2. Yeah. And it's going to be double the obnoxious and double the work and double the tired and double the everything. But it's double the everything, so.
But I just get to come and hang out with them and then love them and then leave. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a good.
But you're going to take her.
I will. I'm
Cara.
excited for a sleepover.
For a sleepover.
It'll be fun.
I'm excited for her to get to do that because one of my favorite things as a kid was when I would get to go spend the weekend with my parents' friend and like stay over at their place or whatever and just one-on-one with an adult that's not one of my parents.
Yeah, cool.
Because when you get that, you get a taste of an adult relationship, right?
Okay.
Like an adult friendship.
Like what is,
And as a precocious, weird intro extrovert, I don't fit into that because it's like I'm an extrovert. I love attention.
Extroverted introvert or whatever.
Yeah, but I love attention, but I really want it to be a one-way street. Right. Like I really want to stand up on a stage and yeah, that's what this is, dummy. And talk without the feedback of like, no, it's not your turn to speak. It's my turn to speak. And that's like, that is where our relationship as friends is so weird because I enjoy this too. Yeah. But I mostly just want the audience to just be there with me to enjoy what I have to say. I don't really care what they have to say. I mean, I love when you guys write into us and
obviously backpedal.
But no, it's not a backpedal. It's just like, but the truth of it is podcasting is the medium for me because it's such low overhead, such high reward for exactly what I want. But then I also like when I'm done, I just want to be left alone. Like I just want to go back to my hovel and just worry about Darth Vader, right? That's my Obi-Wan Kenobi metaphor for the episode. But yeah, it's so weird. Yeah. But I loved that dynamic as a kid to spend that time with an adult one-on-one because you just didn't get that very often, right? So I'm excited for her to get to experience that with you.
It'll be good.
That's a big responsibility. I hope you understand that.
I'm very excited to have a girls' night. I think it'll be really great.
Yeah.
I have to finish filming I've got the filming dates for my short, so now I can actually. When is your baby due?
August 11th.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'll let you guys settle into stuff. It'll be like mid-September, like mid-September, early October, something like that. But it'll be before Halloween.
I mean that's even better because that's the point in time when everybody else stops caring and starts disappearing. Yeah. Because there's a period there, like the 2 or 3 weeks after the baby is born, where people bring you food and they come over and they do dishes and you get that help while you're totally exhausted, and then everybody goes back to their regular life and disappears and you're still exhausted and there's still so much work to do. But not you because you're stuck coming here to record podcasts. So
that'll be good though.
Cool. Speaking of, we're recording a podcast, or
we have another podcast coming up. We're doing the live stream.
Oh yeah, we're doing the live stream on Saturday.
Yeah.
The DCTV podcast fundraiser. Go to dctvpodcast.com and you can find all the details there. But we'll be on from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. Mixler.com/DCTV podcast. Donate. It's the Magic Wheelchair. Magic Wheelchair.
Which is really cool. Foundation. It's like a different kind of a charity that we're doing this time, which is kind of cool. So
really exciting. It's always a good time.
There are so many shows on the DCTV podcast network.
Oh, too many. It's a good thing that we're done. We'll give that time. We'll concede that time to somebody else.
They need it. Yeah.
in the future. But tune in. Cara will be on the podcast.
I'm excited for
because
this.
I made a deal with her tonight that if she went to bed quietly for this podcast, she could ruin that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think you're gonna.
I'm gonna set her up in here.
Because
She's gonna sit on the couch there, and I'm gonna sit here, and I'm gonna give her that microphone, and she can talk into that mic. She'll have headphones.
Do you want to
on.
G-chat me so that I can be on that screen? Can you Google Hangouts on that?
Yeah, we could.
Because if you Google Hangouts so that I'm podcasting with her, so she can see me.
I guess so.
She wants me to podcast, and I don't want to get my butt here at 10 a.m.
All right. If you want to disappoint a 2-3-year-old.
Do you want me to come? I can come here.
No, it's up to you.
I think
it's 10 a.m.
I think it'll be like harder to get her to podcast with me here.
Yes. It's going to be hard no matter what.
Yeah. But at least if I'm at home, me and Andy can vamp while you have to deal with a toddler.
Well, you wouldn't vamp. You'd just be continuing
to podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. If I am on the podcast, it will be sparingly, and it'll be a lot of, I got to go.
Yeah.
So get used to get that idea in your head if you're going to listen along. But yeah, check that out on Saturday. Saturday, June 29th.
Yeah, I think it's the last Saturday in June.
Yeah. Cool. Spider-Man's coming up, which is exciting. So I actually no, the next episode will be the night before Spider-Man.
It's Canada Day long weekend. Are we podcasting on Canada Day long weekend?
Ooh.
Yeah. We have to decide. It's a holiday for us.
Because then the Tuesday is Spider-Man, so I'm at
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
But the thing is, it's like the 4th of July. How much are people really going to be podcasting, listening? They're going to be vacationing. I don't know. Next week might be funky. We'll have to figure out how we're
figure that
do
out.
it,
We'll either record. I think we would either record on the Sunday night.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to say that I've got the Monday off, but I just like.
Yeah, so do I. But I'm going to be out
weird.
in Richmond during the day.
Oh yeah.
Probably be home at night, but
anyways,
in the evening,
we'll
figure that out one way or the other. You guys will get your episode, but it might be a day late because maybe we'll record on the Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
Day late for the Patreon supporters.
Yeah.
But if it is on the Wednesday, the caveat there is that all have seen Spider-Man.
Oh. Nice.
So will you have seen Spider-Man?
No.
No.
I didn't know it was coming out.
You're a disappointment.
I know. Why is it coming out on a Tuesday?
I don't know.
Because it's the 4th of July. Because the 4th of July is the Thursday, so that's probably. That seems weird though. Don't you just want it to come out on the 4th of July? No, anyways, whatever. It's fine.
I guess not, because people go to functions on the 4th of July. You're probably right. That's probably why they moved it to the Tuesday.
Yeah, it's just odd.
Cool. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening along. Of course, you can head to thunderquack.com to check out all the other great podcasts in the Thunderquack Podcast Network. And if you like what you hear, you can support us in 2 ways. First, by heading to... No, wait. I skipped over the whole thing. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/thunderquack. On Twitter at thunderquacknet, and on Instagram at thunderquack podcast. You can also email us thunderquacknetwork@gmail.com.
Cool. You can also follow us individually on Twitter. I'm at akonkin, AKONKIN. You can add an 86 to that for Instagram.
I apologize for the sound that my chair makes when I do that, when I readjust. But you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at arkwolf, ARKWULF.
I'll say this setup was much better than last time, where you were like painfully uncomfortable last time. So
this chair's not that much better. It's better on my back, but not on other parts of my body. Cool. Yeah. If you like what you hear, how could you not? You can support us in 2 ways. First, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merchandise. Man, we should put Spaceballs in the ranking as well. You know what we should do? We'll do this. We'll do Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, right? Which will conclude in December. But then after that, we should do Star Wars. We should rank the Star Wars spin-offs. And what we should do. So bear with me here. Rogue One, obviously. Solo, obviously. Now we're adding in Spaceballs. But also the 2 Ewok movies, which everybody forgets. As well as we'll do the Clone Wars movie. Clone Wars movie at the bottom.
Why would we do that when there's so many other things that we could rank? Let's rank other things.
Because it'd be fun.
All right. I despise Spaceballs. It's my least favorite kind of humor.
Oh my God.
But here's the thing too.
God.
Also, when I watched
Friendship over.
I think when I watched it,
Get out of my house.
I didn't watch Star Wars first. So that's because it was so. Yeah, I think I
Then
watched
let's
Star Wars
watch
after.
Spaceballs again.
So I will say I probably would have a really,
Okay.
really different appreciation for it. But also John Candy, I have a lot of respect for him. He's not my jam. Like that kind of humor. Like I have it grates on me. Like I get that he has a very specific. He's a master of his craft.
Yeah.
But that is not a craft that is meant for me. Parody is my least favorite of all of the genres, including rap music. Like, I don't know.
Heavy hits to parody and rap music.
No, that was a compliment to rap music. I'd rather listen to rap music than
Yeah,
watch.
but you're denigrating rap music by saying it in that way.
Oh.
I would rather listen to rap music
Okay,
than
but, like,
watch Spaceballs.
Fine, heavy metal. I feel better
Okay.
denigrating. But I wouldn't rather watch Spaceballs than listen to heavy metal. I would rather watch Spaceballs than listen to heavy metal music. So there's a
I
ranking.
like the way that you say rather. It's rather, and you say rather. Dude, you have a British accent on that one word. I don't understand why.
Okay. Sorry.
The other way to support us is by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack and pitching in your monthly support and getting cool rewards like early access to this very podcast or the uncut version at the $5 level. Which
We
you're
talk
missing
for
out.
so long because of that. These podcasts are so long.
Yeah, we're actually coming in on 2 hours. I got to wrap it up. Thank you. There's a
Cut off.
limit on Patreon, and that's why the last episode was so hard to get out because we exceeded
Passed
that
it.
limit.
Good to
So
know.
cool. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next
Bye.
week. Return of the Jedi ranked.
Do or do not. There is no try.